Hey mamas, I'm Brooke Miller, registered dietitian, certified lactation counselor, and a mama who has helped hundreds of moms feel like themselves again after baby, boost their energy, mood, metabolism, and even milk supply. Inside of the Postpartum Shift podcast, you'll learn how to take care of your health so that you can show up best for the ones you care about most. Each week, we'll tackle topics like nutrition, exercise, breastfeeding, mental health, and so much more. Plus, you'll get access to guest experts who will share ways to make your pregnancy and postpartum experience easier. Whether you're approaching the postpartum period or you're right in the thick of it, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Welcome back to the podcast. I have a special guest here with us today, Megan, and she is going to be sharing all about her journey with loss and grief during pregnancy and postpartum. And we're going to dive into things, with trauma and postpartum anxiety, because there are so many moms out there who are struggling in some sort of capacity during pregnancy and postpartum. And I know that her story and some things that she shares today is going to be so beneficial for moms who need to hear it. So Megan, can you just start off by introducing a little bit about you and, how you ended up here and how you help people right now?
Yeah, Brooke, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me on here. It's kind of a long story, so I'll try just give a few bits and pieces. I guess my story really starts when my daughter died, which is in 2016. I hadn't known any sort of grief, loss, pain like that. And I also didn't know how quickly mental health could be taken away from you. I felt I had some anxiety before she died, just in general, just felt like I dealt with some anxiety, but my mental health completely disappeared. I feel like it snapped after she died. I found her and it was just like I lost control of myself.
Yeah.
That's kind of where my story starts. And diving into that whole world. We can talk more about what you want to know about that, but
Yeah.
um in my whole journey of learning how to live with grief, learning how to navigate anxiety, trauma, really diving into getting help for myself, but to where I am today, where I help people now heal anxiety and trauma very quickly, and where it's like you don't have to manage anxiety, trauma can be healed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
where I've experienced that on a daily level where I could hardly function, I couldn't take care of my kids, to where
Yeah.
now I have zero trauma around my daughter's death. I do not worry about my kids dying. I have no anxiety, no fear at all. And that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
why I love doing what I do, because I know how terrible it is to live with trauma and anxiety, and then the grief, which we can also talk more about, separating grief from trauma and anxiety. They're not all the same thing, which people kind of connect. And I would love to
Yeah.
separate them for people, and really
Yeah.
healing that trauma and anxiety so that you can live a beautiful life, which is very possible, which I love my life today,
Yeah.
which I didn't really think was possible after she died.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, can you dive into just kind of the difference between grief, trauma, and anxiety for moms who are listening? Because I know it can be very confusing, especially during pregnancy and postpartum when we have all
Mm-hmm.
these hormone shifts and we have so many changes happening. And so I think there's a lot of moms out there who are struggling with some of these feelings and they don't necessarily know what it is or how to
Mm-hmm.
identify it. So I would love for you to share a little bit about how to separate those for any moms who are listening.
Yeah. So I guess, when it's new to you, it's something you've never heard, confusing. It's like, what's happening to me? I'm going crazy. There must be something wrong with me.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to first say there's nothing wrong with you on any level of anything that's going on. Okay. But there can be
Mm-hmm.
things that you can support, that you can clear, all of that. But this is totally normal experience. So
Yeah.
I think and the reason I want to separate grief, anxiety, and trauma is because people combine them all together, and say you have a pregnancy after loss. This is totally normal to be anxious. This is just how it is. This is kind of what we think, right? This is
Mm-hmm.
normal. And I think why I don't want them all combined is because grief, people have they really want to hold on to their grief because there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
meaning around if I let go of my grief, I'm forgetting. If I am
Yeah.
not grieving, then I'm moved on and I don't want to move on from my baby because I love my baby. And there's so
Mm-hmm.
much of that wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
And grief is also just kind of with us our whole life. I would say my
Mm-hmm.
grief has changed from when she died till now. I have a lot less grief waves. They're not as intense. I feel more grateful that she's in my life. I feel more like I can remember her with love and good memories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that's changed, but the grief is with us our whole life,
Yeah.
where trauma, anxiety can be healed, completely cleared, and they are kind of optional. They're not something you have to live with. And
Yeah.
so, anxiety, how I kind of think about things that it might show up as in terms of thoughts, racing thoughts, thoughts that feel really uncontrollable, disturbing thoughts, intrusive thoughts. It can show up in your body as experiences as heart pounding, as belly, whirly belly, like physical sensations. Um, and that's just really general terms of anxiety, how that might show up.
Mm-hmm.
Trauma is where there was something that happened. You might not remember it, you might remember it, where it kind of triggered in the past, and now you experience triggers that send you spinning, that make you feel out of control.
Mm-hmm.
For me, like triggers that I would have, I literally lost my mind. I was like, I can't control myself. My body takes over. I can't I can't do anything. It's just happening to
Mm-hmm.
me. So
Yeah.
both with anxiety and trauma, it can feel like that. Where grief is a lot of like pain, sadness, longing for them. Anxiety and trauma is a lot of fear,
Mm-hmm.
worry, um, fear about the future, what's going to happen. All of that can be made like you can do something about that.
Mm.
Was that clear enough
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was really powerful. Even for me just to think about because I've gone through grief and trauma and anxiety with, our
Mm-hmm.
miscarriages and our son's diagnosis and
Mm-hmm.
all of that and I'm just thinking back to I just kind of bundled it all into one. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is, how I was feeling and it was like, oh no, there were some physical signs of anxiety and
Mm-hmm.
panic attacks and
Mm-hmm.
that was different than, it's just yeah, that was really interesting to hear because I think we all just kind of lump it together
Mm-hmm.
and I think too, we as moms have this feeling that we should just be able to take care of ourselves because we should be able to take care of everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And just that reminder of if you are struggling with grief, trauma, or anxiety, there is help available. You don't have to suffer and live with all of these things for the rest of your life. And you don't have to continue to let that anxiety and trauma continue to impact your future. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's something I had to really work through this pregnancy as well as there was a lot of anxiety and trauma I was bringing into this pregnancy. And I had
Mm-hmm.
to go through counseling and
Mm-hmm.
NLP and RTT
Mm-hmm.
therapy, like
Yeah.
3 different types of therapy to start clearing some of that. And I just know that when moms seek support, it's really life changing, and obviously it changed your life to seek that
Yeah.
support. Can
Absolutely.
you? Yeah, and do you mind just sharing just a little bit more about your daughter and her story and what she was like, and um, just how that whole situation really impacted you and your pregnancy and your postpartum experience?
Yeah. So she was 15 months old. And maybe, up until now, people have maybe thought I was pregnant with her and she died in pregnancy, which she was 15 months old.
Mm-hmm.
She was our third child. So I had two boys and a girl. And then when I was 36 weeks pregnant with our fourth child, she died. She died in her sleep. It's called SUDC, sudden unexplained death in childhood. After 12 months, SIDS is considered SUDC. So it's very similar
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
SIDS. It's just qualified differently and supposedly more rare as they get older. But
Right.
it's just, it's not something you ever expect to happen. It's not something which I
Mm-hmm.
don't think as I do this work, I don't want to share my story. My story is not intended to have people to try to expect that in their life. What I
Right.
really want people to hear from my story is to learn how to live
Yeah.
rather than to learn how to fear. Learn
Mm-hmm.
how to live in this moment because it taught me. I was 36 weeks. I had died. Another girl. So we had two boys and a girl again, which was very challenging in its own way, like
Mm-hmm.
deja vu, reliving, oh, we have two boys and a girl again. And it
Mm,
felt like it was very hard to grieve when I had this severe trauma and trying to keep this other baby alive. It was like,
right.
how am I supposed to grieve? Because to grieve, you have to be like in a safe place. And when you keep getting triggered in trauma, you can never even get to that place. So it was very difficult. It was one
Yeah.
of the worst times in my life, obviously, for everything, for my mental health, my family life, my physical health, my relationship with my husband was the worst it's ever been. It was very difficult. Um,
Yeah.
but now one of the biggest takeaways that I've taken from that is like Aria dying. I feel like a lot of us get this at some point in our life. It's almost like a wake-up call of like,
Mm-hmm.
we are not guaranteed tomorrow.
Yeah.
We are not guaranteed the next day. None of my other kids are guaranteed another day. My husband is not guaranteed another day.
Mm-hmm.
And we just really took this to heart that we want to live for today, live
Yeah.
today, enjoy today. Like, I'm like, clear trauma, anxiety today so you can enjoy today. Don't wait until your kids are grown and gone because the moment is now. The moment is now
Mm-hmm.
to enjoy with your kids. The moment is now to enjoy your life. And I feel like Aria's death really showed me that. And it,
Yeah.
it for us, it inspired us to sell everything, go down to nothing, to build out a converted school bus. And we traveled the country for 2 years, which I don't think we would have dared to do that or believed it was possible. Um,
Mm-hmm.
unless we had had this experience, because like, why would we wait till we're retired? We might not be alive. Let's do
Mm-hmm.
this now so we can
Yeah.
experience it now, not wait, because again, nothing's guaranteed. So I feel like her death really gave us that lesson. And of course, I would never choose her
Right.
death to learn those lessons, but it's just something that I've really taken away from that whole
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I just can't even imagine trying to go through all of that while you're dealing with like a pregnancy because
Mhm.
your hormones are shifting. Like there's so much out of your control happening to your physical body during this time, your hormones and everything. And then to try to navigate grief on top of that is just it's a lot. What did you find was the most helpful for you to start kind of coping with some of the anxiety and grief and trauma throughout your pregnancy and after the birth of your next child? Like what things really helped you kind of navigate that, you and your husband?
Yeah, I think so pregnancy felt like it wasn't very much. It was 4 weeks, and it
Yeah.
was more just like trying to deal with the shock of it. And like, I don't feel like I necessarily think of, I had to deal with a pregnancy. It
Mm-hmm.
was more dealing with a newborn who sleeps all the time. My trigger was sleep, right? So it
Oh
was
my
that kind
gosh,
of
yeah.
thing. I knew I couldn't do it by myself. I was
Yeah.
like, there's no way I can figure this out on my own. I need help.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yep.
think it's very okay to ask for help. And if you've been dealing with anxiety, trauma, triggers, grief, please get help. Like, it's
Yeah.
the number one thing I can say. You don't have to do it on your own. Don't just try muscle through and push through,
Yeah.
and be the strong one for your family because it's not going to turn out good. So
Yeah.
I knew I needed help. So this is part of my story, obviously, and I went to therapy for 1 year doing EMDR therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to highly, highly recommend EMDR. And I did it. It made a big difference for me. I twice a week. It was my life. That's all I did.
Yeah.
And so I did that, but at the end of even all of that, I still dealt with anxiety. So the trauma, the triggers were less. I, experienced a lot more ease in my life, more control in my life, but I had anxiety on a daily basis. And
Mm.
so when I say I used to recommend it, I just can't recommend EMDR anymore. Obviously, people can do it if they want. It's an option. It's something that could work. It could make a difference.
Yeah.
But I just have found that I'd still been experiencing anxiety basically on a daily basis, even up until a year ago.
Okay.
And I had found all these ways to manage it, like with tapping and meditation and breath work. And I learned all the things on how to manage my anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I experienced something called rapid resolution therapy, my anxiety in one session went completely gone, from one session daily to none.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the world is this thing? And so now, as I've learned about rapid resolution therapy and been doing it with people, I'm like, yeah, EMDR is an option if somebody wants to do that, but I just can't
Mm-hmm.
recommend it because there's a quicker, faster, easier way that doesn't take a year of your time twice a week going to therapy, bawling your
Mm-hmm.
eyes out and feeling the worst pain of ever, when
Yeah.
it can be so much quicker and easier. So that's kind of been like, there's been stages of my healing and processes. And I would say through all of it is I haven't tried to do it on my own.
Yeah.
I have sought out help. Every part has been good. I don't think of any part as bad. It's all been a
Yeah.
part of my process, part of my healing. But each thing I've done has been another step in my healing and really being able to, like, where I am today. Anxiety I rarely experience anxiety. If it pops up, I know how to turn it off. I have no triggers, none. And when I say that, people will be like, that's weird. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
should have triggers because you
Right.
experienced the death of your child. And I'm
Right.
like, no, you shouldn't have triggers
Mm-hmm.
because those can be healed and cleared. And I've experienced it myself. And it's like, I know it sounds weird, but it's absolutely true for me in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did a session very recently because I was still carrying some triggers throughout this pregnancy into my next birth. And I did an RRT session, and yeah, I felt so much lighter and better, and I'm not fearful going into
Mm-hmm.
birth this time. And I don't think that would have been possible without it. So I'm like vouching if you have not, if you're listening to this and you've never done it, do it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
go do it if you are struggling with anxiety, trauma. And are you working primarily just one-on-one with clients? Are you doing groups? What are you offering right now with
So,
the
yeah,
rapid
I have
resolution therapy?
one-on-one with people so they can, I can really take them through what they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have a program. So it's more self-guided. They can go through, take what it's like, they bring to mind what they want to clear, and they go through the program. The program is everything I do with people one-on-one, but
Mm-hmm.
obviously when I'm working with people one-on-one, things can change. I might go a different direction, where the program is more set in stone where you go and what you're doing. But
Mm-hmm.
they're both useful, and it just depends on what people are looking for.
Yeah, and can you explain like how rapid resolution therapy can work for postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, just because these are really common amongst a lot of our listeners?
Mm-hmm. So I think of it this way. And obviously, you do a lot with nutrition and supporting people postpartum,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think of anxiety can come from that direction, right? Where it
Mm-hmm.
could be like a deficiency, it could be something that way, it could be hormonal,
Yep.
but it also can be from the way the mind is processing information and the way the mind is thinking about things. And
Yep.
so I focus more on anxiety. I don't focus as much on depression. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but they're like, it can be useful for depression. I just think it's even more useful for anxiety.
Yeah.
So I think of it this way, like I said, it's like an all around approach, right? You could be
Mm-hmm.
maybe need support nutritionally, hormonally, whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
also when the mind reads something as a threat or attaches something as a threat or thinks something is dangerous, even if logically you know that it's not dangerous, the
Mm-hmm.
subconscious mind is going to cause fear, which
Mm-hmm.
also, and then the fear turns into anxiety, which is trying to get you to do something about it. It's
Mm-hmm.
trying to get you to run, it's trying to get you to pay attention because it thinks that this threat that you don't, it might not even be logical, is going
Mm-hmm.
to kill you. And
Mm-hmm.
so the only it's really, people are like, I hate anxiety, I don't ever want to feel it, it's horrible. I'm like, do you know that it's your mind trying to protect you? It's
Totally.
really,
Mm-hmm.
that's all it cares about, is keeping you alive. And so your
Yeah.
mind is just confused. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know that this isn't dangerous, but it's doing everything it can to protect you. And so then what I do with people is we get the mind to understand that it's not dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
no longer needs to send those signals. fear, of anxiety. And so it's like we just shut it off. The
Mm-hmm.
mind is like, so let's think of it this way. The mind's been calling on the phone. It's like ring, 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 trying to get your attention. And then we just answer the phone and we're like, hey, that's not dangerous. There's no threat. Nothing needs to be done about it. And mind's like, oh, thanks for letting me know. You hang up the phone and it doesn't call anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Yep.
very basic description of kind of what we do with the anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so crazy to think that there's so many moms suffering for so many years
Mhm.
not knowing. And I'm a firm believer in that too, of taking a whole body approach. So it's like,
Mhm.
what are all the aspects when it comes to things like postpartum depression or anxiety? And sometimes it is a mix of medications and also
Mhm.
therapy, and
Mhm.
also making sure that we're fueling our bodies and not creating deficiencies or making symptoms worse, and asking for help and delegating. Like there's so many pieces to treatment. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of times moms just assume that there's only one way to treat something. And really it's like,
Mhm.
no, like let's use all of these things together,
Mhm.
to work together, as quickly as possible so that moms can get
Mhm.
relief and start to feel better. Yeah.
Yeah, get all your tools. Use all your tools
All of
in
the
your
tools in the tool
toolbox.
belt. Yes,
Yeah,
always.
like it's amazing. And then like how much so when I work with somebody and we clear anxiety, then they have more clarity of mind. They can think more clearly, so they have more
Mhm.
access to like what are the other options I can do? What other
Yeah,
things can I do to support myself? They can see
totally.
more about things that they can do that would be
Mm-hmm.
beneficial for them rather than spinning in this
Yep.
anxiety and fear and worry. It's like when you clear the anxiety, suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, I can see more clearly. I can see all
Yep.
my options. Where when you're anxious, you really have like tunnel vision of like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the only thing I can see.
If you've been wanting to reach your healthiest weight and feel like yourself again postpartum without having to sacrifice your favorite foods or your milk supply, I've got a free workshop just for you. Inside of this free workshop, you'll discover how to boost energy, mood, metabolism, and even protect your milk supply. You'll learn common mistakes that moms make that actually cause exhaustion, mood swings, low milk supply, and weight loss resistance to become worse, things that moms don't even realize. And you'll learn the proven 3-step method to heal your hormones and metabolism after baby so you can go from surviving to thriving postpartum. Plus, as a free gift, you'll get my postpartum snack guide when you come hang out with us. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes to save your seat today. Spots are limited. See you there. Yeah. And I'm curious, did your husband also do the rapid resolution therapy, or how did he kind of process the grief differently than you? Because I think, especially when we have spouses, we tend to really process things very, very
Mm-hmm.
differently from one another. So I'm just curious of how he processed things differently from you and what things maybe helped him that could be also useful for some of our listeners.
He completely different,
Yeah.
completely
It's
different
like
than me,
my
like
husband and
night and
I are
day.
totally
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
So, after Aria died, I was like, I was getting help. I was doing all the things. I was like, I can't do this alone. And I really, I would say, kind of fell apart. And he became the rock for our family.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I look at it, I could think, oh, I wish that didn't happen. I'm like, I don't know if it could have happened any other way. It's just the way it
Yeah.
happened. It was just what it was.
Yep.
It's what I needed. I was the one with severe trauma. He did not have that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I feel like in the beginning, he just really kind of ended up being the rock, taking care of me, taking care of the family, going to work,
Yeah.
and mainly maybe shut down a bit. And I was really concerned in the beginning, like, well, if you don't grieve now, if I'm going to have to deal with you in 20 years
Yeah.
when it
Yes.
crashes. I was like, tell him that, like, I don't feel like dealing with this in 20 years. I want you
Yes.
to deal with it now.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
I feel like in the beginning it would be like I would be so confused, like why, we go to the cemetery and I'm just bawling my eyes out and I look at him and he's just sitting there and I'm like, what's wrong with you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why aren't you crying? I don't understand. And he's like, just because I'm not crying doesn't mean I don't hurt. or I'm not
Mm.
feeling it. And I was like,
Yeah.
that was so eye-opening for me. And
Yeah.
then I realized how differently we were grieving, how differently we
Yeah.
were processing, where I would go to people and I'd talk with them and I'd grieve with them and I'd cry. And I always had like these friends and these people that were really supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And he would try go to therapy. He never really liked it. The therapist that he originally went to only talked to him about me, never even asked him about
Mm.
him, which was not really a good
Yeah.
fit
It's
for
not
him,
helpful.
not helpful. But then like, we found different things where like I realized, okay, he would go to the cemetery by himself, and that would be his way
Mm.
of grieving. Like he didn't want to go there with me. He didn't want to go there with the
Mm.
kids. The only time he
Yeah.
could is by himself. And
Yeah.
I just really had to respect that and honor
Mm-hmm.
that this is his way of grieving, because for me, I wanted to know everything he was thinking. I was like, okay, if you're
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it and you're sad, I want to know. Tell me all about it. And then I had to learn,
Mm-hmm.
I just have to be here in the room with him and hold space for him. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
pry. I don't have to ask anything. And when I could let go of that need to like know everything,
Mm-hmm.
it got so much better for us. And I could just honor his experience and just be with him. It's been so different from mine. And
Mm-hmm.
where I feel like my grief comes up less and less now today, where like it was just 8 years in May, and it was totally fine for me. Like I don't even know if I had any like grief waves or pain. It was just like
Mm-hmm.
it was just another day. And
Yeah.
where he had a lot more grief coming up, it was a lot more, painful. And I'm like, you know what? That's totally fine. Like in the beginning, I
Mm-hmm.
was like, no, this can't happen later, and I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
totally in a position where I can support him. I can be
Yeah.
there for him. It's no problem to me now that
Mm-hmm.
it's coming up later. So I just feel like everybody's grief is different, especially when you're have a spouse and it's your child. It can be so confusing. Like, why aren't we grieving the same way? How come this
Yeah.
isn't affecting you like it's affecting me? Maybe you didn't love them like I loved them. Maybe, we can have
Mm-hmm.
so many thoughts and questions. And it really is like we have to take a step back and be like, our experiences are completely different, even
Mm-hmm.
though we're both parents of the same child.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have to honor our experiences. Like, what if, so I
Yeah.
want to just say this from a mother's perspective, because I think a lot of times this is moms who think about their husbands like there's something wrong with them. They're doing it wrong. They're not doing it right. I'm doing it
Yep.
right. And they're doing it wrong.
Yep.
And what if your husband came to you and said, you're doing it wrong?
Mm-hmm.
You are crying too much. You are,
Right.
and we wouldn't appreciate that.
Right.
And so to respect and honor their experience with, even if you think it's not the right way, it might be the right
Mm-hmm.
way for them right now. So
Yeah.
that's just my little spiel about
Yeah.
experiencing
Yeah.
that as a couple.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important reminder. And how about your older kids when all of this happened? How did it impact them, and what types of things did you do to help them
Mhm.
navigate grief and trauma? Because our siblings have to be impacted in some
Mhm.
sort of way too. And so, what things helped your other kiddos kind of during this time and transition period?
Yeah, so our kids were 4 and 2 when she
Okay.
died. So they're
Yeah.
still pretty little, but it has definitely affected them in their lives. What we did right away is we put them in play therapy.
Mm,
So kids, how they process is through play, through imagination. And something that I had to get really okay with was how blunt kids are, how they'll be like, oh, my
mm,
sister died, or they'll like explain what happened and it's so matter of fact to them. And as an adult, it can be really jarring to hear that. It can be kind of painful,
mm-hmm,
like how they process. But I
mm-hmm.
really just had to step back and let them process the way they were processing. So whether they're acting out, you know, the death, if they're, they
Mm-hmm.
play it, they do these things, which is how kids process their experiences.
Yeah.
And really, so play therapy was huge. Also, just I think personally for my own home and life, we homeschool. And
Mm-hmm.
so just giving my kids that freedom to play more, to
Mm-hmm.
have less structure in their life where they have to, like a schedule, I mean,
Yeah.
just be kids, to play, to experience being outside and using their imagination. I personally think that was super helpful.
Yeah.
But also just having times where there's just white space where they can talk.
Yeah.
Like I would notice when I was driving, and if I didn't have anything playing or anything going on, my kids might in the back seat start telling me things or start talking, be like, remember when blah, 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 this happened. And
Mm-hmm.
something I really realized is how differently our kids remember or process things than what we remember or process. And we
Mm-hmm.
won't know that until our kids say that.
Yeah.
Like one time my son was telling me about, the whole like what happened, and he had remembered it completely different. And even like he's the one that found her, and I'm like, you did not, but like I wouldn't have known that and how he was
Yeah.
remembering and processing it unless he had shared it with me. And
Right.
so just I think it's so important for us, especially as moms, if we have other kids, to get help for ourselves so we can be in a space to be able to handle those kind of conversations with our kids, because they can be triggering, they
Mm-hmm.
can be painful. Um, but number one, you don't have to do it on alone, like get help for your kids, but also that you can be in a place where your kids can share those things and you're going to be okay still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And in what ways has your family continued to like honor and remember her? That would be really helpful for other families to know and
Mhm.
to kind of do in their life as well.
Yeah, we have a few things that we do. So, on Christmas, so my husband's sister Annette died 20, is it 25 years? No, 19 years before Aria died. So Aria died on
Oh
the
wow.
27th and Annette died on the 25th,
Oh
19
wow.
years before. And so my husband grew up going to the cemetery on Christmas. The cemetery was kind of a part of his childhood.
Yeah.
And Aria is actually buried right next to Annette now. And
Oh.
so we go to the cemetery. We go Christmas, for sure, Christmas Eve, we go to the cemetery. We sing songs. Some other ways that we really remember her is she's a part of our life. Like she comes up often in conversation. We talk about her. All my
Mm-hmm.
kids, even my 5 kids that were born after Aria died, they all
Mm-hmm.
know her. They all, know what she looks like. They like mention her in their play. My 3-year-old, who's a girl, will also be like, "Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Aria, blah blah blah." So she's very much a part of
Yeah.
our lives. But then different things that we do for her birthday, we have gone to Children's Hospital. She had hip surgery at the age of 1,
Mm-hmm.
for hip dysplasia. And so we go there and we do a meal.
Oh,
So
cool.
she had that around her birthday. So we go on her birthday and we do a meal there. That's always really fun. We really like appreciate doing that. And it's a really special way to remember her and help others.
Yeah.
We always get a nothing bundt cake. I don't know
Oh
how that
yeah.
started, but that's what we get for her birthday cake. And we always get a
I love
birthday cake
it.
for her. And then for her death date, we have for the first many years, we went somewhere with really close friends, like to a cabin. We've gone somewhere every year. We've never stayed
Mm-hmm.
home. Um, we have always gone to a cabin with really close friends. And then the past couple of years, we've just kind of mainly been on our own, and really spending time as a family. So both
Mm-hmm.
of these days, her birthday especially and her death date, we like my husband doesn't work. I don't work. We spend time together as a family. I feel like her death really showed us what's important to us and what matters to us. And those days, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like especially we remember her, we do things to remember her, we connect as a family, we go do fun things together. Like it's just really important to us that we make sure those days are spent as a family, as doing something together. So those are a few things we do.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I think that so many parents out there, they want to remember and they want family and friends to remember and acknowledge that. How did you feel like even now, it's been 8 years, but how do you feel even now with like family and friends, and what things help support you and your husband on birthdays and death days, and then what things are not maybe supportive, just for anyone listening who has friends or family who've gone through something similar. How can we best support families, and how yeah, and what things should we not do? Like, because I think something that really was hard for me during our miscarriages, where a lot of our family and friends just acted like nothing happened and they wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge it. And that was really
Mm-hmm.
hurtful. It was
Mm-hmm.
actually better for people to say, hey, how are you doing? Or
Mm-hmm.
just acknowledge that something happened. And so I'm just curious if you felt similar feelings, you know, when it comes to her and especially these big dates.
Mm-hmm. But this, I feel like this is so different for everyone. Sorry if you can hear the
Yeah.
garbage truck in the background, but
Oh, no, you're good.
this is so different for everyone. And so it's hard to give like like across the board, like this is
Yeah.
what's gonna work for people because everybody's gonna experience it differently. This person can be like,
Right.
they keep asking me how I'm doing, and it's so annoying, and
Right.
so
Right.
it's gonna be different for each person. But for me, I feel like we've been really blessed with really supportive family, friends who really, kind of like checked in. Even 8 years later, I was pretty impressed with the amount of texts I got or messages I got. It wasn't many, wasn't a ton, but I was like, oh, it's been 8 years and
Wow.
it's like, wow, I still got a few messages.
That's
And
great.
so I think I think, like you said, just reaching out, like even if you don't know what to say, you can say that. You can say,
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know what to say. I don't know how to help you, but just know
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about you. I love you.
Yeah.
I care for you. Because they don't know either.
Right.
Like the person who's grieving, like has no clue. You have no clue. And like one
Mm-hmm.
of the best things one of my friends said to me was, we have no clue what we're doing. We don't we're navigating this like you because we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
This is new to all of us
Mm-hmm.
and we really want to help you. So if you can at all communicate to us what you need, what you're looking for, we're
Mm-hmm.
happy to help. We want to help. But,
Yeah.
and like as the person who's grieving, it can be like, I have no idea what I need. I don't know what would be good for me. But
Yeah.
if you can work with communicating with each other rather
Mm-hmm.
than just like, oh, they didn't do this, they're stupid, and they whatever, we can get it can get so emotional. I totally
Mm-hmm.
understand that. But if we can be like,
Yeah.
okay, this is what I need, and try to have some sort of communication and open communication, that was really amazing for me, and I feel like we've been really blessed with help. The things that I would say are not helpful, probably across the board,
Yeah. Yeah.
is saying anything if you open up your mouth and start saying at least.
Yes.
If you
Yep.
find yourself with your sentence saying at least, just shut your mouth.
Yeah.
There's nothing good gonna
Amen.
come after that. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no, like, you don't need to try fix the situation. You don't need to try
Yep.
change it. There's nothing that you need to do, even though you want to. Just really being with them, seeing how you can help, letting them know that you're there, and actually being there, checking in, even if they don't
Mm-hmm.
respond, even if they don't reply. Um, because the worst thing you can do to a friend or to a family member or to a loved one is, like you said, pretend it didn't happen
Mm-hmm.
or just disappear.
Yeah.
Those, you might think they don't notice, but they notice. I promise they
Yeah.
notice the people who went silent. They notice the people who disappeared. Um, and you notice, as somebody who's grieving, you find out the people who do show up, and you remember those people who showed up even if they didn't know what to say, even if they said the wrong
Mm-hmm.
thing, but the people that actually showed up, you notice
Yeah.
them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, I think that's so important for everybody to know, because I think we all are going to go through life either going through our own losses of somebody close,
Mm-hmm.
our own grief and trauma, or somebody close to us is going to experience something like this at some point. And so it's really important for all of us to at least start to get educated on how to navigate this for ourselves
Mm-hmm.
or for loved ones, and how we can, best support those that are going through it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to happen to all of us. And the
Mm-hmm.
sooner we can get comfortable with being uncomfortable, with not having all the answers, we're going to be much better off.
Exactly. Yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to share that you think would be really helpful for new moms, who are navigating any type of anxiety, trauma, grief, loss, during pregnancy, during postpartum, that would be helpful for them?
Um, I think I just think about postpartum anxiety, I guess, is kind of what's coming up for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's things you can do to support yourself, but also like um one thing that I feel like I walk a fine line with sharing my story and then people take that and getting anxious about things in their
Mm-hmm.
own life. And what I really want somebody, if they're dealing with postpartum anxiety, is to like, you don't have to go down the rabbit hole of looking at everybody's stories and all of that, because all of that is not happening to you right now.
Yeah.
And none of that is happening in your life. It's not happening right now. And if it's happening to
Mm-hmm.
someone else, it doesn't mean you have to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, your life is this moment right now. And like, it's really, it can be really beautiful if you can just stay in this present moment of this is
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. Um,
Yeah.
and part of RRT is like getting the mind to understand that all of that other stuff, that those anxiety fears, they're not happening right now and nothing needs to be done
Mm-hmm.
about them. And
Yeah.
so really just, if it's useful to not be on Instagram looking at everybody's
Mm-hmm.
stories and all that stuff, like for now, or, taking
Mm-hmm.
little breaks from things to just, because it can be such a beautiful time having a newborn, having a baby, and it can be
Mm-hmm.
a terrible time if you're dealing with
Yeah.
a lot of depression or anxiety. And the best you can to take care of yourself and your baby and keeping your mind present and calm and clear, um, definitely is going to be, it's going to be a good thing. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's the one thing that I don't like to share my story for people to like take it into their own life, because this is my story, not your story.
Mm-hmm.
And your story can be completely different than mine, and it could be similar, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not happening to you. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. Did that make sense?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I just think about, I actually had to take like a break off TikTok for a while. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
if anybody else feels this way, but I felt like my TikTok for a while was all husbands dying and kids dying.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband and my son have almost died. And so I'm like, I can't see this, because I would leave TikTok feeling so anxious, like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, my son's gonna die, my husband's gonna die, they've already almost died.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to like set firm boundaries around that of
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, this isn't my story. Just because this has happened to somebody else doesn't mean it's going to happen to me. And also, I think something that helped me with like NLP and RRT was letting go of that thought that your past would predict your future. And
Mm-hmm.
so even though like, you were saying like your story is not my story, but even your story, you didn't take
Mm-hmm.
forward into your next pregnancies and your next
Yeah.
kiddos. And I think that's really important as well, because I think whenever we go through loss or anxiety, especially like pregnancy after loss, it was like,
Mm-hmm.
I was taking that with me, like, oh,
Yeah.
well, I've already lost so many. It's just going to keep happening over and over. How will
Mm-hmm.
this be any different? This is what my body does, And so it's like, yeah, this isn't your story if you're listening to this about Megan, but it's also, if you do go through loss or grief, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is going to be your story in the future again, too.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a different future and a
Mm-hmm.
different ending. I think that's
I
really important for
100%
people.
agree with that. I feel like that was life changing for me to
Mm-hmm.
really get that within my subconscious mind, even like Aria's death day.
Yes.
Like a lot of people fear these days. And like I mentioned, this year
Mm-hmm.
was like nothing. It literally didn't affect me at all. But I think because I was like, Aria died May 27th, 2016. This is
Mm-hmm.
May 27th, 2024. It's not the
Yeah.
same day. And so
Right.
when I can understand that day's over, Aria never will die again.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
Yeah.
She can't die again. So like to get that within my unconscious mind, it like, okay, that is that day. This day is a new day. It doesn't mean another
Mm-hmm.
kid is dying today.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's important what you commented on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you share just one or two things that Aria loved to do? Like, something that like just some cool like things about her personality that you guys still talk about as a family.
She was so little, so there wasn't, tons that she had, but
Yeah.
she was so easy her whole life,
Yeah.
like
Just chill.
so easy. Smiley, she smiled at everybody. Everywhere she went, she smiled. I called her my princess, and she just like, she had surgery. She was in a cast, a full body, like down the hip below cast for 6 weeks. And She was so easy. She just sat in her beanbag chair in her stroller, and like it was not a big deal at all. I I always tell people that like she didn't get old enough for me to ever get mad at her. Like my other
Yeah.
kids, I have plenty of times where I can get frustrated with them and mad at them. And she was so little, I never got mad at her. I never
Yeah.
once, like she was so cute and so innocent. And like even when she was just in the stage of starting to throw temper tantrums, and they were just so
Yeah.
cute. I'm like, oh, look at
Yeah.
you trying to throw a temper tantrum.
You're
So
too
like
cute.
so she would even that I would just like, oh, you're cute. Like, I don't know. She was something special.
That's awesome. Well,
Mhm.
I love that you guys still honor her in so many different ways and talk about her so much, and that all of her siblings know all
Mhm.
about her. I think that's really, really important moving forward. So thank you for sharing your story. And can you share where to find you and work with you, and how to work with you?
Yeah, so you can go, like, I guess I have a few places. Maybe the best place to go is my Instagram, which is Megan_Hilika. You can also go to my website, meganhilika.com, and you can message me on Instagram if you're interested in working one-on-one, or I have a free training that you can watch to learn more about how RRT works, how to clear anxiety and triggers, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of like what you need to have in place in order to finally clear them. Even if you've tried a lot of things, even if you've
Yeah.
tried many things that don't work, um, I'll show you on this why those things didn't work for you. Um,
Yeah. It's
and
important.
so that's maybe the best place to start is either going on my Instagram, watching the free training, messaging me. I do one-on-one, I have the program. And even also for just like grief, if you have any, like, feel free to message me to chat with me. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have questions or whatever. I'm really an open book about all topics, about
Yeah, I love
grief,
it.
loss, anxiety, trauma. Like I've experienced it all. I know all what it's like. And I'm happy to chat with people. I also
Yeah,
have a
that's
podcast
amazing.
called the Joyful Mom Podcast.
Yes, yes, definitely go listen to the podcast, connect with Megan on Instagram. And yeah, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for turning your story into something so positive. And now, because of Aria, you get to help so many different, types of people through different types of grief and trauma and anxiety. And so you're making a big difference in the world. And so, yeah, thank you, Aria, for everything that you've done in the world, because
Mm-hmm.
she's spreading goodness everywhere too still,
Yeah,
which is really
absolutely. Thank
incredible.
you, Brooke, for having me. And I would have never ever pictured that this is what I'd be doing in my life. I promise you, before Aria died, I hated talking about emotions. I was not comfortable having hard conversations. There's so many things that I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I do this for a living because it's
Yeah.
it's incredible, but I love what I do. I love being able to help people, especially when I know how horrible it is to be in that place and to be able to guide somebody through that to
Yeah.
feel better, have a more joyful life for sure. So thank you for having me on. And Aria has continued and continues to teach me a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I will link all of those in the show notes as well, so that it's easy for you guys to connect with Megan. Thank you so much, Megan. And yeah, I can't wait for everybody to connect with you. Exercise is crucial for our overall mental and physical health, especially during pregnancy and postpartum. Something that has helped me stay really consistent with strength training and yoga at home during nap time is the Expecting and Empowered workout app. I love that I can choose how many weeks pregnant or postpartum I am, and the app tells me exactly what to do. Plus, there's cardio, yoga, and strength training options for new moms and moms to be. You can go ahead and click the link in the show notes to get 7 days free and also save 15% off the annual option when you use promo code Nutrition for Mamas. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to the Postpartum Shift podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you could share this episode with a mom friend and leave a written review. This helps the podcast reach and help even more moms. Come say hi over on Instagram at Nutrition for Mamas.